Hi, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Project Peak Performance. It's myself, Ian Macbeth, and Alex Willis, and we are going to be diving deep into the main subject, really, I think, Alex, as we were talking off camera, is going to be around mental focus, trauma that then results in a different kind of success level for people's lives, and obviously using the agenda of Rob Brady's recent podcast as the main review topic that we're going to flow from. So I'm going to talk about Rob in a section, but first of all, coming to you, how's your week started? How are you? What's going on with Alex at the moment?
Feeling good, mate. Obviously, we're just coming off the back of a bank holiday, so spent a lovely 3 days in Wales, getting a bit of
Nice.
R&R, as you can with three kids, going mental. And then yeah, played golf yesterday. So it's I've had worse weeks. The sun's coming out. I'm feeling like the summer's incoming. So feeling good, mate. I'm 10 out of 10 today. What about yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, the bank holiday was pants weather-wise on the Monday, but it was hot on the weekend, which didn't serve me well while I was racing. But now, the last 2 days, it's been beautiful out there. So hopefully spring is here, summer will be around soon. And everyone just seems a bit more smiley when the sun's out, don't they?
Well, for those that aren't watching, obviously you've got your t-shirt on. Do you want to let people into sort of what you did over the weekend, that fantastic achievement?
I'll touch on it briefly, and then probably we can link it with some of Rob's stuff actually. But yeah, I was over the moon with the fact on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. I started in Richmond and completed 103 miles, point 6 ultra marathon, effectively four marathons back to back at 7:20 on Sunday morning. So it's my first ever 100-mile A to B. It's the longest distance I've ever run. It's the fastest I've ever run 100 miles in, and I was in a quite an elite field of 269 racers that had to qualify, and I found out that 110 people DNF'd actually. So over a third of people didn't finish because it was really hot, really tough, really muddy, and I finished 35th. So yeah, over the moon with that. Thank you for bringing it up.
As
Repping
you
the
should be.
t-shirt today. Yeah,
As you
it
should
was.
be. And I think, you're right, we will come back to that because part of Rob's next phase and focus is looking at ultra running. So we can definitely link back into that, and I'm sure you'll have some advice for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the takeaway wise from Rob's episode, we have to talk about ADHD because it was a big part of the conversation. And I felt James almost like wanting that information. James was like, he was almost sat on the sofa with Rob a little bit, wasn't he? Like, right, give me the knowledge, which I really enjoyed because it meant it was genuinely authentic with the questions that he was asking. But what's quite interesting is they were kind of talking about James was saying, look, I feel I've got ADHD, sort of self-diagnosed. Obviously, Rob always talks about the fact he has and how he uses it as a superpower. And Dave, in a roundabout way, was like, yeah, I mean, I definitely got ADHD in some fashion or another. Um, but me and you don't have that, I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, not diagnosing it yet, but probably not, no.
No, but what I was thinking as they were talking, I was kind of because it's about hyper focus, isn't it? And attention. And maybe the disorder part of it is an unjust word that's in the letters, but everywhere they were talking about it just seemed like someone that's got really channeled focus and the inability to be distracted by what they're focused on and the fact that they kind of enjoy what they're focused on, if that makes sense. But even if they don't enjoy it, they've still got the ability to get the job done because they see it's a driving force. Like with Rob, for example, running past the empty skip he spoke about, he knew that he needed to get the garden done, but the pain point of going past the skip again got too hard. So then it was like, no, I'll save the run for later. I'll get the skip filled and I'll do the garden, which brings me a reward because I don't feel that negativity and that guilt anymore, I think was the word he used. But he used his channel focus to do it. So I was really struggling with like ADHD as a term because I was thinking, well, you just sound like really focused people. And I don't know what your thoughts were on it. I'm not like taking ADHD and putting it to one side, but it just felt like you just felt really focused.
Well, we probably don't quite appreciate it, but it's almost like Rob's focus is focusing on slowing the brain down and how he gets into that state of focus. That seemed to be sort of, I've not listened to many people who are as focused on one step at a time and segmenting things into, things that can take up that focus, sort of almost the process points rather than sort of a fulfilled destination. So, I mean, it was fascinating for me to listen to because, again, I don't profess to understand what it is like to have ADHD. But you're right, the things that you spoke about segmenting things off, about focusing on one thing at a time and seeing it through, those sound like just really good advice for people in general, day-to-day life. I mean, what else stood out from you from that sort of ADHD conversation?
Yeah, I felt it's clearly something that means when you're in the wormhole, you're right in it, and there's almost not an inability, but discomfort or an unwillingness to come out of the avenue that you're going down, and you're kind of right. I am in the thick of it. I think he spoke about when he was sometimes talking to his partner Kel that you just got to leave me alone for 10 minutes, and I can relate to that actually because sometimes I'll get home from work and I'll still be a bit in work mode, and I might be reading an email or something, and then I'm replying to it on my phone, and my wife's trying to talk to me, and I kind of just have to say to her, like, I'm not listening to a word you're saying right now. I just need to do this
How
because I
did that go
can't,
down?
not well ever. But it's the only way I can do it. I have to go like, I'll just be quiet for a second, and then I'll give you my full attention. But I need to reply to this. If I don't reply to it now, I'll forget, and then it'll be blah, blah, blah. But it does seem like what Rob's managed to do better than anyone I know with ADHD, and I know quite a lot of people with ADHD. He's been able to break it down into like this chunking exercise or this priority list exercise. And I know from talking to Rob, he's got, his lists and his family calendar and things like that. And he's managed to really use it in his life as a superpower, like James says. He's really managed to bring it in and say, right, I'm going to utilize this to my advantage. And that is just a phenomenal achievement that I think not a lot of people with ADHD are able to get to that point.
He spoke.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He spoke about chasing those sort of rewards, those endorphin hits, and spoke about his struggles previously with alcohol, drugs, things that aren't probably the things you want to get obsessed about. And he used a really clever question in the episode, which was about techniques to manage the ADHD brain, which was, are the daily habits good towards the brain or bad towards the brain? So if you're going to get hyper focused or obsessed about something, is that something that's going to be good for you, or is it going to be bad for you? And segmenting it like that obviously makes a lot of sense. And his purpose that he can probably lean into each day is helping one person a day. If he sort of has that at the forefront of his mind, then his brain is always looking for things that are going to help rather than hinder. So I thought he explained it incredibly well, and it helped me understand things a little bit better from someone in that position.
I mean, for what he was talking about with, we know Rob as a pack member, but where he spoke, on stage on a TEDx talk about his best friend Chris that passed away, the impact that had on his life. But even with Chris alive, he was suffering and struggling with these mental kind of challenges himself. And where he spoke about, how he felt, didn't want to get out of the door, and he had this kind of bravado of focus on his career, but it wasn't really him in his true kind of inside mentality. Those kind of demons that were there, the way he's managed to kind of get to the point now where he's, elite performance coach. He's one of the most sort of thought after and respected people in the property industry, in our industry. No one's got a bad word to say about Rob in the estate agency game at all. And to do the TEDx stuff, obviously he's a dad now of twins, which I've got two kids, but having two babies at the same time or two toddlers at the same time, that's going to be a challenge for anyone, right? So he's got that all going on. And at the same time, he's now very much, hyper focused on this ultra marathon that he's got coming up in 4.5 weeks, actually, which I'm going to be privileged to be around him while he completes it. So yeah, he's juggling a lot of balls and he's doing it with a smile on his face and with a focus of setting a goal, setting the action plan, then being committed and disciplined to achieve it. And that kind of 3-step strategy we spoke about in all sorts of different sections with the project. And it comes back to somewhere around that is the ultimate driver for the peak performance, I think.
I think a massive piece of advice, or like something that a takeaway from the episode for anyone listening, is that ability to focus and commit to a goal at a time. He obviously had this big hairy goal of doing a TEDx talk, which he achieved, like amazing. But he wasn't gonna start that ultra training until he'd finished that. So, really segmenting off that as a focus, I think, rather than suddenly I'm doing that, I'm gonna do a bit of training here, probably not focus too much on it and commit to it because my brain's gonna be thinking about the talk. And, again, it's advice for people to sort of not have always 5, 6, 7, 8 things that you're chasing all the time. Commit to something, do it well, and probably a goal could be bigger than if you were sort of diversifying across many different things. I mean,
Yeah.
you've obviously sort of, you're an elite ultra runner now, Mr. Macbeth. But with Rob, who's now sort of really stepping up, he's doing some good numbers now, and he's really getting into it. Like, what advice would you give to people that are starting a little bit earlier on in that journey now, if they want to get to sort of, I suppose it's where they want to get to, because you've hit some pretty good highs there, but just in general?
I've always tried to work out kind of why ultra running, and more importantly, why put yourself in that stress state and that challenge state and that uncomfortability. And I think I've kind of broken it down now to whether it's ultras, whether it's an Ironman versus a triathlon, or peak physical shape in the gym versus just being comfortable in the gym. Whatever you want to sort of put it to. I think you've got in the running world, you've got speed goals. Really, speed goals are ego goals. You want to break your 5K, you want to break your 10K, your half marathon, maybe marathon, but they're very much kind of ego goals. You're driven, your ego is driven to do it. So anyone can run a marathon with training, anyone can run a 10K with training. I put in the group the image of the blind runner that did my race
Yeah,
on the weekend.
unbelievable.
With a guided runner. Even the guided runner is unbelievable. The guy that guided the blind guy to 103 miles is incredible in its own right, that you've got someone on the end of your wrist that you're having to guide while you still do the challenge yourself. And then you step back and you go, and this guy was blind and he was doing it. I mean, it was mind blowing. But speed goals are ego goals. And when you get into the distance stuff, 50 miles plus, 100K, 100 miles, it's not about ego anymore. You're doing it to find out what happens when your body and your brain say, we can't do any more, is what's going on there. And Rob talked about that because he said he's doing this ultra marathon to find out what he does at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's dark, when he's been running for 13 hours and his body's going, nah. That is ultimately what ultra running is about. So not that I'm the most experienced ultra runner, but I've been doing it for 3 years now. And what I've really learned from this weekend and mistakes is ultra running is about problem solving. And that's why people do it, is to find out, right, problems will happen. If you're doing 100K or 100 miles, you are going to experience problems in life. Problems will happen. No one has a perfect life. No one has a perfect career. No one has a perfect relationship. But what you learn with ultra running is when a problem is coming, can you see it before it's a problem? Can you see it when it's a small problem before it becomes a big problem? And how can you adjust to it? And that's ultimately what it's going to be about. So my advice to Rob is get ready for the problems and try and spot them early and don't ignore them. Handle them and deal with them head on. And you could probably say the same in business.
Yeah.
You could probably relate to that in business. It's
So
you've got a problem member
transferable.
of staff. If you ignore that problem member of staff, don't deal with them, it's a real big problem, isn't it? You have to
I
deal
think
with it straight away.
it's one of the traits I put down for what's consistent across high performers is adaptability. and being able to adapt when things aren't easy. It's chasing the challenge and the uncomfortableness. And I sort of haven't quite announced it to you guys yet, but I'm gonna be taking on the challenge myself, which I'll formally announce in the next couple of months. But it's gonna be something that only 1,800 people in the world have done, and it's something that scares the shit out of me. But again, being in the group, hearing about your journey, Rob's now embracing something that's sort of pushing his boundaries. It inspires me, and ultimately, what's the point in life if you're staying in that sort of slow lane and just sort of doing the same things that, I'm not saying I'm in the slow lane, I never would be, but taking that step up to do something that scares you, challenges you, and tests you what you're about. There was a great quote from Chris Williamson on the High Performance podcast in the last couple of weeks, which was, "The magic you were looking for is in the work you are avoiding."
Yeah.
I just think that it's like, again, that transfers, whether it's business, whether it's physical challenges, like you're avoiding something can make you great.
And I think there's a flip to that as well. And I love that quote. And you see it time and time again when you're on the YouTube shorts or whatever. But the flip to that as well is sometimes there's magic in actually avoiding certain things. It's like the power of saying no. Sometimes the magic actually comes when you've got your goal, and I relate this back to the ADHD focus. There's a lot of power in avoiding certain things when you're trying to complete something. So there's sort of two parts to that. Is you're not doing the work that you need to do to achieve the magic, and then you're saying no to the work that's going to stop you doing the work to achieve the magic. There's like two paths to it. And I think that quote that you talk about there, and the way that Rob talks about his ADHD focus and his goal kind of setting and challenges and completions, is there's two parts to that. And I learned that strongly in the two different races I'd had, is how you prepare for these things. And we're going to do a podcast, actually. It's great because I've got three of the pack group members, actually, they're going to join me on this podcast with one of us as well, and myself, and we're going to talk about stress management. So that's a great episode that I can't wait to get three guests on, sorry, which is going to be awesome. Are you seriously going to leave us hanging on this episode, by the way, for this goal and challenge that you set?
It's something that it will be completed in about 18 months. It's something that I'm not a natural at, so I'm doing something completely out of my comfort zone. So I'm happy to let you into it separately, but I'll wait for the full announcement. No, not live. I'm not. I'll save the breaking news for the PPP community for sure. But yeah, I'm quite excited about it. But it circles off something that I realise I need to do for my own self. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but it's mental. So
fair play for I respect anyone that takes on a challenge that scares them. And I think sometimes you spoke about Rob and having that big one. I call him the big, hairy balls challenge, that big kind of scary wow. Mine was this weekend for me this year. I put it on a pedestal. You've got that one. It scares you. It's on a pedestal. Rob's got his goal in 4.5 weeks. It's on a pedestal. It's something that he wants to achieve, and everything is focused around that. And that's the difference between the people that are content within themselves, that they're trying to push themselves to that success journey, and the ones that maybe sometimes are frustrated because they haven't got those big challenges. I believe that. One quote that Rob spoke about is he said, how many people are going to turn up to your funeral? Because ultimately what he's trying to do is affect one person every day in a positive way. And it's quite a selfless sort of way of living your life, isn't it? That I think because of everything that went on with his best friend and, those own inner demons that he had, and now the way that he's, got his partner and he's got his family and he's got this kind of career that he loves and enjoys and gives him the freedom to kind of be creative and achieve what he wants to achieve. He's now like, right, I want to help a person a day. And almost like his like big life goal is to, have a funeral that's so big because of the people that he's impacted. That's like the big goal above the goals almost, which when he said that, it was like, it actually made like sort of hair stand
Yeah.
up a little bit in my arms, because I was like, wow, that's quite a cool way to live your life.
It certainly cleanses your decision making every day, doesn't it? And
Mm.
it's a tangible goal. There'll obviously be people that are affected positively by Rob and how he is that he might not be aware of at the time. But, I think it's quite a tangible, specific goal that can be measured relatively most days. Um, I think it's quite similar as well to Mo Gawdat. Obviously, Mo Gawdat talks a lot about, his son Ali that he lost. And after that, his focus was about making 1 million people happy, and sort of, he would link into how many YouTube views he got, how many people bought his book, but how many people he could touch by giving them a message of like how you should be happy, like life's great. So there's sort of like quite a holistic goal that actually cleanses your thought process. I think that's quite a nice way of putting it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I like that.
the sort of thing that stands out for me, myself, I'm really hyper obsessed with understanding that sort of top 1 to 2%, the elite performers across sport, business, whatever it may be, and what makes them tick, what makes them get into that sort of that upper echelon, that elite status. And the thing that combines a lot of them, when you listen to them on podcasts, when you read their books, whatever it may be, is like that trauma that they might have experienced at some point in their life. The trauma's up and down. Trauma is often the springboard to greatness. And I think, without, I struggle sometimes to think, are there people that can reach that elite status without a level of trauma? Because I do think it unlocks an extra level of motivation and resilience sometimes if you do have that to either run from or lean on. Um, so I just think, obviously, with what happened to Rob's best friend, Chris, he's obviously taken that and gone and done amazing things using that as his motivation. With, how many people are going to do a TEDx talk in their life? Not many at all. So he's already reached a really um, high status there. But I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that someone can come from a relative, comfortable upbringing, nothing really sort of negative happens in their life? Do you think people can go on and deliver greatness without something to lean on that causes them an element of trauma?
I've struggled with this and I've battled with this topic. Um, I don't think anyone has a comfortable life. I don't think anyone, I think everything is in context. I don't think anyone gets to 30 years old and it's just been plain sailing. I just don't think it is, because I think there's almost levels to everything. This, it circles out, and someone might have had the most traumatic experience when they were 9 years old, and someone may not have, but they may have compounded things up until they were 30 years old that have been playing with their emotions and impacting them, that are micro in context to that one experience for the 9-year-old, but over a period of time they've impacted them for 30 years. It's been in the back of their mind and it's been a real issue for them. I don't think anyone has just had like an easy life, but I think in context there's always those standout things. And I I struggle with it, probably from my own perspective, because I don't feel I had that traumatic moment in my life to think, well, I feel like I'm driven. Um, I'm not Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. I'm not Usain Bolt. I'm not Ronaldo. But I feel at turning 40 last year, I'm happy and successful in my life. If someone had told me at 25, this is where you'd be at 40, I'd have I'd have ripped their arm off for it. I'd have been super happy with it. So not that I deem myself as elite in success, but I feel really happy and successful in my fitness, in my family, in my professional life. But I haven't had that moment of trigger. What I think the trauma does do for people is it gives them the bottom it gives them the bottom brick to go, there's no further down than that really, and it gives them the bounce back ability, or it it gives them the opposite to that, which is this is where I deserve to be.
Yeah.
And that's a real sad place that two different people can go in.
I mean, there's definitely context needed on it, because you look at, someone like Ashley Kane, who has obviously, lost his daughter and now goes into these ridiculous challenges with a genuine, I don't care if I don't come back, going in completely, and that sometimes might be able to deliver an element of performance that going beyond the threshold, because actually I've experienced the worst thing I'm going to experience. If I go now, I go now. But then you've got someone like Mike Tyson, who growing up, getting beaten up, constantly, bike robbed, just a rough environment, but getting bullied because of size and whatever it may be. I think his lisp as well. That has always driven him. And I think there's an element of that where if you don't get the balance right and you don't get the motivation right, you end up being on the edge of going off the other side, and that trauma sticks with you, because obviously he came off spectacularly towards the end of his career. So I don't know. I think it's a fascinating conversation point, and there's probably a level of context needed on a case by case basis. But I just found it interesting with Rob, that trauma that he's experienced. Obviously, first he made him change. He talks about changing his environment, changing the way he spoke to himself, finding the person that's right for him. It obviously was a springboard for him to maybe go and do things that he might not have done otherwise.
I think also, as you talk about those people, it goes back to what is peak performance, what is peak life, and what you look at someone like Ashley Kane and what he's done. You can only respect like the challenges he's done, and it's unbelievable what he's actually done. It's almost unattainable to the human kind of psyche and thought process. But is he happy? It doesn't feel happy when you hear him talk. He's motivated and driven to achieve something, to distract him from the trauma, is the way I see it. And if you flip it and look at someone like Alex Hormozi, that's obviously in wealth and business, hyper successful, in phenomenal shape. But every time I hear Alex Hormozi talk, he's always he's trying to convince the speaker and himself that it's okay to work for 24/7. It's okay to wake up and work and go to bed after you're working. But I don't think that is okay. But he's driven on this one line to try and match Warren Buffett and be richer than Warren Buffett. But is he happy?
Tell you what, it's like the second or third time you've gone after Hormozi. We're gonna have some beef soon.
Because I think he's in terms of how he's articulated, I don't think that's healthy for this day and age to be highlighting that to people, because I believe success is around, are you happy and content with the balance that you've got in your life? And if you look at Rob, like he loves his family. He won't deviate from his family goals and his diary plan. He won't deviate from his partner's goals and his partner plan. He won't deviate from his training plan, and he won't deviate from his work commitments. It's exactly the same way I live my life. Is these are the times that get slotted into how we do it, and that brings happiness, and that means you go to bed with a smile on your face. You wake up excited for the day. But those people we've just spoke about, do they, or are they constantly battling? And I don't know. I don't think they are happy. So it depends what success is.
Yeah, very true. Because if you look at someone like Stephen Hendry, like, probably second greatest snooker player of all time. Ronnie O'Sullivan will still call him number one, but Rocket Ronnie's got to be number one now. But he talks about, Hendry talks about how obsessed he was at snooker, 8-9 hours a day, neglecting his family, his kids, all in pursuit of becoming the best. And they actually asked him on an episode that I heard, having lost, divorced, sort of lost relationship with children, would you do it differently? And he said no. So he was just, but again, you know, is that him putting a sort of a front on versus, you know, what he's feeling inside? But you know, his goal was to be number one at all costs, and if he's happy with that, that was his goal, and he achieved it. But you're right, you know, most people, like for me personally, I sort of obviously look at my life in a compass and try and get a balance between everything, but it's not always perfect because sometimes I'll look at things and say, well, it's a 9 this week, but something else is then a 4 because it's had to
Mm.
suffer. It's always that balancing act. And the best performance I have at work, for example, is when I've looked after my stuff personally in terms of getting my gym timing, hitting my 90 golf balls, you know, the stuff outside of work to be able to feel freer in work. I think it's a
Yeah,
great conversation point because there is that, can someone reach that elite status in terms of that public eye performance and have that rounded life? It's going to be fascinating if we were able to dig into that in a bit more detail.
yeah. I mean, it goes back. Rob talked about funeral, but you know, you think you're laying on your deathbed, and what's going through your mind? You know, there has to be an element of you are thinking about regrets or you are thinking about successes. And I don't know whether beating Warren Buffett or becoming three-time world champion or being the best snooker player you ever could possibly be outweighs the negatives or not, because me and you are not Ronnie O'Sullivan or Mike Tyson or, you know, any of the examples we use. So it's hard because we don't know to put it into context. But I still feel that when you look at these people that get to this elite level, financially at least, one of the first things that you see with people that have gone financially to that elite level, or even successfully, and that success has brought them financial elite level as well, one of the first things they do is they try and find purpose, and they go into like charitable stuff, and they start to try and improve other people's lives. And there has to be something in that that makes you think, actually, are we looking at it incorrectly? Are we trying to get to a finish line in our bank account or finish line in an achievement factor? Because everyone that's done that more or less then finds purpose in helping other people to get to a status of at least average. They're trying to help the people at the bottom to become average. And is there something in that that sometimes is missed in that kind of peak performance of life? I don't know. We would go deep because we're talking about Rob's episode. It means a lot to us, but in a roundabout way, I'm constantly thinking about that because I don't know what the answer to it is, but it does get you analyzing on it and thinking, you know, you look at Elon Musk, you know, one of the most intelligent men on the planet, creative men on the planet, wealthiest men on the planet. Like he just like sells all his home possessions and goes rogue, you know, or he'll just go totally off grid, or you know, he'll just go on the Joe Rogan podcast and open a spliff just to set fire to his world because he wants to see what happens, you know. And it's kind of something in that somewhere with these people that are kind of right in that the 1% of the 1%. It's they're looking for something else, and normally it is purpose is found in helping other people, really. And maybe Rob has found that without, you know, that other avenue, because that's effectively what he's saying. So, you know, of all the people we talk about there, if someone's going to bed happy at night, I think, and I hope, you know, Rob is in context to all of those people that we spoke about. If you put the pedestal up there, really.
I think having had the pleasure of getting to know Rob better over the last few months, I think just any time that we have our calls together, or any time you're sort of on an episode with him, talking with him, I always admire how his ability to listen with the intent to understand. I find it interesting when there's a lot of people on a call. He's not the one necessarily jumping up and down to make a point, but when he does make a point, it's really, really relevant and purposeful, and it's taken into account maybe what we've discussed, and
Yeah,
it almost sometimes can close off the conversation because it's like, you summarise that brilliantly. Fantastic. Let's move on. So I think that really does stand out for me. And he spoke in the episode about communication being key and understanding from the other person's perspective rather than how you want to project. And I suppose not knowing Rob what he was like previously, I'd love to know how much of that is a learned skill versus how much that is him just generally as a person. I'd imagine from what the journey he's gone through, he's maybe learnt to become better at that. But the other day we were on a call. I sort of, I'd come onto it. I was kind of preoccupied. I was probably quiet for the first sort of 10, 15 minutes. And I just had a message pop up saying, everything okay, mate? From Rob. So he sort of, he is very, very tapped into that world and understanding and that ability to sort of reach out and try and understand, is everything all right with people around him? So that for me just makes him stand out like from a million miles.
Yeah, definitely. He's often the last to speak, but the first to take action. You know,
Yeah,
that's Rob in a nutshell, isn't it? And that's a very endearing characteristic. It's the guy that you'd want to be your captain in your team because you know he's doing it for the team, you know, and that's a really nice way to kind of sum up Rob from our perspective at least. And you know, he's a guy that's got everyone's respect for sure. And it's very interesting every year that I've known Rob to see what the next thing is that he's trying to achieve. Because one thing that guy's got is commitment and discipline. And that excites me because they're my driving forces as well. You know, to see him getting that silly big ice tub thing that he's got in his garden and just sit there filming himself, like just having a thought, you know, and for him to have his TEDx, and he talks a lot about manifesting and stuff like that. And manifesting ultimately in my vision is this is my goal, this is my focus, be clear-minded in that goal, and then when the opportunities and the doors open, I'll see the path and the way through. That's how I sort of visualize manifesting. He's got it down to a T. You know, he makes stuff happen through that clarity of focus and the discipline that he puts on himself, even when he doesn't want to do it. And
yeah.
that is what it's all about. You know, everyone can be motivated, but discipline is a different kettle of fish. And that's why that guy will complete whatever challenge he wants to do at this 24-hour race. And yeah, I'm going to be there to watch it, and it's going to be
So,
exciting.
so Rob, when you're listening back to this, I would suggest whether you're listening to it or watching it, if you watch from 35 minutes to 37 minutes, me and Ian have had the biggest smile on our face just talking about you. So yeah, go and watch that bit back because I'm sure that'll brighten up your day, mate.
Yeah. And I think if anyone's listening and they're like, right, I really want to get that clarity in my mind, I want to take that next step in my life, I want to be more focused, I want to stop quitting on my goals, listen to Rob's episode and take the focus points that we've taken from this, but and reach out to Rob. You know, if you really want to do it and you're really struggling with commitment to your goals, Rob will be the first person to try and offer some support on those. So reach out to him. And that for me in this episode is, you know, defining peak performance through clarity of focus. And in Rob's case, using his ADHD as that kind of way of making success happen to him. So great episode. And obviously this weekend, mate, we will be, you know, at the point of this episode being launched, we're going to be halfway up a mountain, aren't we?
We are indeed, and absolutely delighted. Sold out event, so we've got the people coming. Really looking forward to it. Where are we going to be right now? We will be within our hike, probably what 3 or 4 hours in. So
Yeah.
yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's great to see that the group have sold out, you know, on the 20 places, the exclusive 20 places. Fear not if you miss this one. We're going to do another thing. Our style is not going to be, you know, dodgy conferences in Holiday Inns. That's not really what we're looking for with these events. But, you know, they're going to be some golden moments for some people. You can't guarantee that everyone's going to have the light bulb moment, but some people will. And it's going to be exciting to get up that mountain. even with the 37 blisters that I've got on my feet. Um, I'll get myself up there.
And we'll look to open up more places next time. We've obviously had a few people disappointed that they weren't able to quite get in time. So yeah, wait for the next one, guys. We'll have a great one this time. Feedback and make it even bigger and better next time round.
And we've got 2 guests as well coming up there as well. So, for people that are listening that missed out, check it out next time, because we'll always try and have some of the guests on the podcast that are coming up. We've got 2 coming with us this time, which is going to be exciting. We've got Alex talking about his fasting experience. And obviously we've got an amazing business coach as well for people that want to kind of talk about business and coaching in that respect. And obviously we've got the pack members. So thanks for listening. Well done, Rob. Well done for the episode. I took a lot from it. Alex clearly did as well. I'm sure other people did too. Proud to have you as part of the pack. And we will see you all next Friday for the next episode.
See you soon, guys.